In this video, we are making CashApp Web 3.0 dApp with NextJS. I'll be showing you how to make your CashApp clone work with something called SolanaPay. If you don't know what SolanaPay is, it's a digital payment platform built on the Solana blockchain that you can use to make it so that your front-end app can now send money and Solana to other users. And you can feel free to customize this web app and make it your own and add it to your portfolio. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so here we have the app. And as you can see, there's a couple transactions on here. This one is for NBA tickets. As you know, 2 Solana is pretty expensive, so maybe that's how much it costs. Right. Another transaction says user sent you SOL through the Phantom app. Right. We have functionality where we can load a QR code and I can literally scan this with my phone and I can pay through my phone. So if you want to set up what's called a point of sale system, I'll show you guys how to do that later in the video, so stay tuned. The main feature though is that you can disconnect or connect your wallet. You can see all the transactions, which are all being stored in local storage. All right, so we're gonna hit new, and then as you can see, there is a test here that we could do, and we can even put this for like dinner, for example, right? And you can change your 1 SOL to 2 SOL, but we'll do 1 SOL. And if I hit pay, send 1 SOL, hit approve. All right, and as you can see, dinner is there as well. And if we look at my Solana wallet, I had 15 SOL, now I have 14. And in my other wallet that I sent this to, 4A, it should be 5 instead of 4. And if you look, it's 5. So that's pretty simple. Very simple app for you guys today. Let's get started. All right, so you might be asking, Lance, how do I get started working on this project? Well, we have something super awesome for you guys. If you open your terminal, so you could do this multiple ways. Well, one way is to open up VS Code, press Ctrl-J, and make sure that the path here is the folder that you want. So you have to do CD and then your folder name, right? So whatever your folder name is, replace that right here, right? So this is where I want to put it. It's in my projects folder, and all you guys have to write is something called npx clever programmer. Okay, so this is the latest version currently at the recording of this video, but you can always make sure it's the latest if you do npx clever programmer at latest. And if you hit enter, go ahead and put your email address, which is for me this, and your name. And once you do that, you'll get access to all of our portfolio projects that you can add to your own portfolio. And be sure to customize them and make them your own, build something else with them. So you don't have to make Solana CashApp. You can make your own website where users can send different transactions, or even set up a store with SolanaPay as your point of sale system. So I'm going to click Solana CashApp, hit enter, right? And it's going to run some scripts, and I'll come back into the video once that's done and we can get started on fixing and starting the app. All right, so let's get started. So at this point, you should have used our CLI tool to get the starter files that you need. You can make sure by checking if you are in the CLI starter branch. And all you need to do is press yarn dev. Like I mentioned earlier, you don't need to download any packages because if you use our CLI tool, it's done for you. So what we want to do now is open up your browser and let's head to localhost and start that project, because you're going to notice it's going to be a little bit different. So let's take a look. So you can notice that if you look at the transactions, that is static transactions. I didn't make those. They're just default there. We're also not logged in, as you can see right here, and can't connect our wallet anyways, as well as there's no pay functionality. It doesn't work. So our job is to show you how to get this app working while teaching you guys about Solana Pay. So the very first thing that I like to do is start with our wallet connection. So as you can see, I'm clicking, but connect wallet doesn't work. And our wallet of choice today is Phantom Wallet, of course. So log into your Phantom Wallet if you already have one. If you don't, we're going to show you guys how to get Phantom Wallet. So skip ahead a little bit in the video if you already have Phantom. So what we need to do is head over to Google, and you can go on Google Chrome and write Phantom Wallet extension. Okay, and once you do, you can click this first link here, and it's going to say Phantom, and just click Add to Chrome. Once you do that, you should see the little extension right here in the top right corner. Click it and create a new wallet. You're going to get a set of phrases. Save that phrase. Don't share it to anybody. Also, don't share anybody your private keys as well, or else they'll have access to your money, right? Another thing that you're going to need to do is click on your profile and make sure you're on the right settings. So click developer settings and change the network to DevNet, right? There's going to be 3 networks here: mainnet, testnet, and DevNet. We're going to be using the DevNet. So it's not real Solana, so we can play around as much as we like. Awesome. Cool. So once you have some Solana in your wallet, I have 2, we can go ahead and start our wallet connection. All right, so by this point, you should have the Phantom wallet extension all ready to go. And the first thing that we're gonna do is set up the connect wallet functionality. All right, so quick question. Do you know where this button is in my app? If you don't know, you're gonna have to stick with me. And if you do, feel free to move on ahead. All right, so where in my front end folder does that wallet connect button live, right? You're gonna have to understand how the app works because you didn't make this app, you don't know how it works. So let me show you guys how it works. So let's go to the browser again, and let's head over to Zypeboard and let's draw out the parent-child relationship of my app, right? So what do I mean by that? If you look over here, and let me make this box, let's say that this represents my entire app, yeah? So every app component in React has a child. What do I mean by that? Well, this app is going to have an index component child, right? So index.js. How do I know? Well, let's take a look at my VS Code. So let's go to pages, let's go to app, and you can see, right? There's a head and there's a component in line 15 right here. Do you guys see that? Right here, component. Awesome. So what is this component? If I were to click into it, you'd notice that this component is actually the index. All right, so all of this is the index. Let me zoom in for you guys so you can see that a lot better. So let's take this, go down, press Control B, boom. All right, how's that? So this should be a lot more clear now. So this is the index, right? So if I were to do like a side by side, let's put this in here and let's put this right here, right? And let's bring this back. So going back to CashApp, right? This is my app so far. And don't mind that everything is all smushed up, but take a look at this, guys. Right? If I were to take out this component right here, nav menu, look what happens. I'll comment it out, save. And boom, we lost all of the items right here, right? And this new button went all the way to the top. Okay, what if I took out this transaction list? Comment it out, boom, no transaction list, right? This works because inside the index.js are more components, right? So let's illustrate that now. So what did I comment out? Nav menu. So that means, oops, not that. That means here, the index.js has a child of the nav menu, right? It also has a child of transactions, right? Transactions, right? This is important because if you've never worked in React before, or if you've never seen this project before, how are you going to find anything or understand anything that I ask of you, right? So if you know this, you're in good shape. But if you don't, keep up with me, right? So we got nav menu here, right? There's also transaction QR model and profile. So let's add those as well. So let's do more arrows. We'll do this rectangle, another rectangle here, and we'll do profile, and we'll do say QR model, or modal, right? And these have arrows to point that this is the child of index. What else do we got? We have action and new transaction model and search bar, right? Let's just not worry about those for now, but these are the main ones. All right, so let's make this full screen again. Okay, cool. So this is the profile right here, right? This is the nav menu. This is the transactions. Okay, so if I were to ask you which of these, like the profile, the nav menu, or the transactions, which of these components is going to have the connect wallet button? And if you said the nav menu, you'd be correct. So let's take a look at the nav menu. So let me undo all of that. Go back to our VS Code. And we can make this full screen as well. Oops, still in the draw tool. Boom. So nav menu, you said, right? So if we look at the nav menu, and this is probably giving us an error, so don't worry about that for now. Go to components. We'll go to header. Yep. And then we go to nav menu. I mean, let's take a look at what's inside. We see nav menu here, menu item, and we also see button here. Like, what could this button be? So if I comment this out, Hit save. Let's take a look. Damn, okay, so look, we lost the connect wallet button, which only tells me that this is our button, right? So we need to add the phantom connect wallet button, right? So to do that, we're going to have to get the connection first. So let's set up the connection. So to set up the connection, the first thing that you're gonna have to do is head over to your app.js. And once you're here, you do know now that this is representing our index.js. What we need to do is wrap our index.js with the wallet connection. So let's go ahead and set that up. So the way I like to set it up is go to the wallet connection provider.js, and that's gonna be in the context folder. And to set up that connection, we're gonna need to import a couple of things. So let me just zoom in a bit. Can you see that? And we can say import connection provider and a wallet provider. So we do connection provider, and you're gonna see the suggestion here. It's gonna come from one of our packages, Solana Wallet Adapter React. All right, so get connection provider. And the next thing that we wanna get is gonna be wallet provider. Yeah, there's actually multiple different ways to set this up. All right, you've seen me do it a couple times by now. This is another way. So we can also import the wallet modal provider, right? And this is coming from Solana Wallet Adapter React UI, right? This provider is specifically when I click the connect wallet button, you're gonna see the selection of wallets. Solana actually provides you that modal, so you don't have to make it from scratch. So and make sure to import that. And once you import that modal, let's import the wallet that we're going to use. And like I mentioned, we are using Phantom, right? So what you wanna import specifically is Phantom Wallet Adapter. All right, and you can get this from, I believe it's at Solana Wallet Adapter Wallets. So this thing right here, hit save. And once you do that, the only thing we'll need next is a React hook called use memo. Okay, and then that's just gonna come from React itself. Cool. So after that, that's all the imports that we need. Let's go ahead and set up the provider. So we can do that by saying const wallet connection provider is equal to an arrow function, like so. Okay, and then once you're inside here, you can say const endpoint is equal to use memo. And inside the use memo hook, you're gonna make an anonymous function like so. And you're just gonna say something like this. It's gonna be https://api.devnet.solana.com, and then you're gonna put a comma here and put an empty array. All right, so what is an endpoint? An endpoint is what we're using. It's an RPC node that's gonna help us connect directly to the blockchain. So this is helping us connect directly to the devnet of Solana, and we're saving it using our use memo hook, right? So that's our endpoint. We should also set up our wallets here. So by wallets, I mean what wallets are we gonna use to connect to our app? And we're gonna use memo again. The only difference with this though, is we're gonna put this in an array and then say new Phantom Wallet Adapter, right? A new instance of Phantom Wallet. If you guys have any other wallets you wanna use, you would basically add them to this array like so. Okay. After that, we're gonna return here. And this is gonna return a couple different things. So it's gonna return our connection provider. So we set it up like that. It's gonna have our wallet provider inside of that. Okay, and then within that, we have our wallet modal provider. Okay. And inside that wallet modal provider, it's gonna take in children, right? And this is not gonna make sense because we have to go up here and also pass in children. Let's go up here and also pass in children. So once that's done, make sure you actually export this. So export default wallet connection provider. And the reason we're gonna do that is because we're going to import it in our app.js. So what we wanna do now is do Control B or Command B and head over to our app.js. And we're already importing dynamic, but we're gonna use this to get our wallet connection provider. So we'll say wallet connection provider. And we're gonna say equals dynamic. and we're going to import it by doing something like this. Say import, comma here, quotes, // context, and then wallet connection provider, right? And then from there, comma, exclamation point, not exclamation point, curly braces is what I mean, and say SSR to false. Okay, and then a comma. And after that, hit save. And what we want to do is make sure that our component here is wrapped with that wallet connection. So we can say wallet connection provider and copy this or cut it and just move it up to here. Hit save. And I'm just going to erase this to make space. And boom, that's it. We set up the connection, right? Now that the wallet is connected, our endpoint is in there. There is one more thing that we're missing, I think. We got to go back to the wallet connection provider, and we need to provide the endpoint and the wallet. So that's why this is grayed out. So head back to your wallet connection provider and go inside your connection provider. And we're going to pass in a prop, and the prop is going to be called endpoint, right? Because it's going to inspect an endpoint, and we just pass in our variable like so. And for the wallet provider itself, it's going to expect some wallets. We can pass in that variable that matches as well. And another thing I like to add is something called auto connect. So if you're already logged into your Phantom wallet and you load the page, you will already connect that wallet that is logged in. So cool. So it's really cool that it does that for you. But when you look back at the app, you're not going to notice any significant change because we didn't even set up this button. So let's go ahead and do that. So going back to what component, guys? 3, 2, 1. What did you say? If you said nav menu, you are correct. So I'd go and press Command B. And notice line 3, we're importing the wallet multi button. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to erase this and I'm going to say wallet multi button like so. Hit save and bam, there it is. So if our connection is correct, I can click select wallet. There's our wallet modal. Click Phantom and boom, didn't connect. There you go, connect. You can even disconnect and click that and boom. Cool. So cool. It's connected now, and if you notice, it kind of stands out, and usually I kind of leave it like this, but today let's just style it so that it matches the rest of our nav menu. So let's go ahead and go back to here. If you guys want to know how to style it, go to nav menu, and what we could do is this. We can not make this self-closing. We can make this like this, and we can give this a class name, and I'll just call it Phantom button. And in there, we can also put a start icon. Okay, so if we give this a start icon, we can use our user icon circle, right? So that is that symbol with the person inside of it that you saw earlier. We're going to use that right here. We can say user circle icon, right, and give this a style, right? So the styling is technically all here, and you can say that the height is, let's say, 24, and the width is also 24, and the color, I have it for you guys. The color is going to be quote hashtag or number sign 15EC3C, like so. And after that, go outside these two curly brackets, and then we can put the self-closing tab right here. All right, but we're not done yet. We can also add a little span here, and we want it to say connect wallet, right? So we can say connect wallet, and we also want to style that. So we'll say class name, text is small. The font can be like semi-bold, and the text is going to be that same color we had here. So let's get that and place it like so. Can't forget the hashtag. Cool. So let's hit save and let's see what we got. Cool. The spacing is terrible, so something's going on here. Phantom wallet. The text should be connected. Let me see. Class name, font semi-bold. It should be somewhere. Oh, I see. This shouldn't be an equal sign. It should be a dash. Hey, there you go. Cool. It's like those little errors that always get you, but that should just be a dash, and it should just say connect wallet. Yeah, I was playing around with this. Let's put connect wallet. Save. Okay, cool. So now we can disconnect and connect. But now you'll notice that when I disconnect my wallet, it's hard to tell if we're actually connected or not. Right? Disconnect, connect. All right, that's because we need to make some conditional rendering that if we're connected, it just should say our wallet address, for example. So we could do that by importing it right here. You'll notice two things that I'm already importing as a prop: connected and public key. So where is this coming from? If you go back to your index.js, go back to nav menu, I'm already importing something called connected, right? But connected is coming from use wallet. What the hell is use wallet, Lance? Well, I'm glad you asked. Use wallet is coming from Solana wallet adapter React. And basically, if we're connected, this should be true. So let's console log right here and say connected, comma, are we connected? So if you see this in our console, if it says true, our wallet is successfully connected. If it says false, we shouldn't be. So let's go here, inspect element, console, false. Are we connected? True, we are connected, right? So disconnect, connected. There we go. So notice how when it says true, we are connected. When it's false, we are not connected, all right? It's hard to tell because the text isn't changing. So that's why we want to set a condition. So if connected is true, show me my wallet address. If connected is false, show me connect wallet. All right, so we're back at the index page. And now that you know how that works, we can head over to the nav menu now. And once you're in nav menu, you can see that we are passing down connected as a prop. And if you go to your button, like so, we can set up some conditional rendering. So how do you set up that? We can do that by putting curly brackets like so and set up a ternary operator. So how do we do that? We say connected, right? Question mark. If you guys know what if statements are, you can kind of read it like so. So if connected is true, right, what do you want to happen? If it's true, we want to see the public key, right? Else is like this colon right here, else, right, we should see the quotes connect wallet. Okay, so save that. Okay, so connect wallet. Let's go over here. Look at that, it says public key, right? Why does it say public key? Because we're freaking connected, duh. So if we go to disconnect, it says connect wallet, connect public key, right? Now the problem is public key doesn't really show what my wallet address is. So how do you know what your wallet address is? Click on your phantom icon, click on this wallet right here, and you can see this top one, 8TKZ, right here, 8TKZ. That is my public key, or as known as my wallet address. So how can I display my wallet address? Well, go back to your code, go back to index, and if you remember, if you look at this right here, this use wallet hook, it also comes with public key. If I were to console log that, console.log public key, this is my key, save, go back to your app, inspect element again, you can see that the public key is your public key. And do you know why you don't see the 8T? That's because it's not in a format that we can really read. So if you do .toString, like so, you're gonna see the 8TK. This is my key, right? So we're using public key from use wallet, right? And that is what we can use to render our key dynamically. So how do we make use of this public key? Pass it down to the component that we want, nav menu, and to pass down the prop, you can say my key is equal to public key. Okay, hit save there, go to nav menu, and we can get my key. Cool. And from here, instead of saying public key, we can do something like this. Actually, no, we don't have to do that. We can probably say my key right here. My key, hit save, and okay, yeah, because it has to be a string dot to string. Okay, and now look at our new problem. There's our key, but it's way too long, right? That's why we need to what we call truncate it. So let's go ahead and truncate our public key. So luckily, I made a function that does that for you. So if I click this, this is a function. It's going to take that long string and return a little dot in between it. So it's not insanely long like this. Look at this. All right, that's how long your public key really is. To truncate it, we're going to make use of this function. So go back to nav menu. To import this function, I'm just going to the path, getting that function in the string.js. And now let's call truncate. So where is it? It's right here. We can say truncate parentheses and wrap that key in there and save. And look at that. More digestible, a lot more easy to read. It's going to be atkz ... right? So I literally took you step by step how to make this dynamic. Disconnect, connect wallet, boom. So that's looking good. One thing that I want is I want this profile picture, right, to give me a unique profile picture as well as show my key, because this 111, that's not me. This is me, right? So how can I go from this to this, right? It's the same way that we used public key. All right, so we know, let's see what we know. All right, come with me, child. We go here, we say, we know that public key is equal to my wallet address, right? What else do we know? Where does this live in my app, right? Where does this 111 exist in? It's gonna exist in my profile component, right? So we need to go to profile component. Okay, those are the two things that we're gonna need. Let's go ahead and think about that. So go in your index, let's take a look at our components, and we're gonna see profile.js. All right, it's a child of index. And you can see here that I'm truncating a user address, right? So whenever you're opening up a new app that you didn't make from scratch, right? Be sure to be able to answer all the questions like, what is truncate? What is user address, right? If you don't know what user address is, we can console log it. Console.log user address. What is this? Save, back to the app, inspect element, console, right? 1111, what is this? So that's what user address is. Next question, guys, where does it come from? Where does user address come from? Well, we know now that we can pass down what we call props. So that means we're passing user address as a prop. But who is the parent of profile? All right, I'm gonna give you guys 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Who is the parent of profile? If you look here, this is the child. The parent is index. So we go to index, find profile, and we see that we're passing it down, which means it comes from here. So let's find where user address is from. User address is a state, and we set it as 1111, right? And if you look at here, line 23, we're setting the avatar based on that address, right? So there's a lot of different things moving here, but let's break it down, right? So the user address comes from this state right here. Okay, but how do we make it so that profile, right, has the right user address? Well, one thing I could do is instead of passing user address, we could pass public key. Let's see what happens if I do that. Change user address here to public key, hit save. Let's go back to our app. There you go. Why is it like that? Because public key is a BN, right? Remember, it's not in a format that we can read. So if we go to user address, we need to do a .toString kind of deal here. Okay, and also we got to do it here as well. .toString. Save. And can't read properties of toString. Okay. All right, so maybe we can pass it down toString beforehand. So let's do public key .toString like this. Oh, I see, because it doesn't know what public key is. All right, so when you first load the app, we're not connected, which means we don't have a public key. So if I put a question mark here, let's see, length truncate. Where are we calling truncate? That might be in the nav menu. Now let's go back a bit. Let's put this back to user address. We might have skipped some steps here. All right, cool. All right. Let's go back. It doesn't know what public key is just yet because it wasn't connected. So what we need to do is set the states of the public key. Okay, so we're gonna do this a different way. I think we should set up our hook. All right, so we're getting the truncate error because it doesn't read public key right away. It's trying to truncate a BN, or like the format that it can't really read just yet. So what we want to do is let's make it easy for our app to read it, and let's start working on our hook. So under this hooks folder right here, we're just going to say a new file, and we're going to call it cashapp.js. Awesome. So this is a custom hook that we're making to set up all the functions such as the transaction payment, creating the transaction, and any state variables that we're going to use. So the first thing you want to do to set up the hook is import a couple different things. So let's do all the imports right away. So I'm going to make your life easy by saying import use state and use effect. All of this is coming from React. Okay. From there, we also want to get the avatar URL. So if we go back to index, we have another function here called get avatar URL, and it's going to generate a random avatar based on the key which we're passing in. All right. So we're also going to import that as well. Import get avatar URL. And you should have this function already built in with the starter files. And let's import all the wallet stuff in here actually. So we can say import wallet adapt network, adapter network. Okay, and this is going to come from at Solana wallet adapter. It's not here, slash wallet adapter base. We want the base one. Okay, cool. Save that. Wallet adapter network, okay. Import use connection from the Solana wallet adapter, and also use wallet so we can get the public key and the connection as well. Next, we want to import a couple things from Solana Web 3. So what we want to import is cluster API URL, connection, key pair. We also want to get lamp ports per sol. And don't worry if this doesn't make sense yet. We're going to use all these imports, and I'm going to show you what they mean and how we're going to use them. We can also get public key, capital 1. And we can get system program, one word, and transaction. Cool. And this is from Solana Web 3, like I said, which is this right here. And we also want to import big number from bignumber.js, which we have in our packages. Cool. So that's saved. Let's go set up our React hook. So we can say export const use CashApp. That's what our name of our hook is. And if you didn't know, this is how you can make your own custom one. And let's see. At the bottom here, we can return anything we want. So return object, and whatever we put in this curly bracket is what we can pull outside to our app. Right. So let's say we're going to use wallet here. So if we're going to use wallet here, we can say const connected and public key. Not that one. The lowercase one is equal to use wallet, right? We can pass connected here and public key, and we can go to index, and we can actually erase this in line 16, right? If I save this, it's gonna break, right? Because public key is not defined, and also we don't see the connected thing anymore. But if we go down below here and import CashApp, use CashApp, import use CashApp, like so, from hooks/CashApp, and just say const connected and public key right here is equal to use CashApp. It's fixed, right? All we did was set it up in our hook and then export it and import it here, right? Why do we do this? Because now instead of passing stuff down like I was doing earlier here, it's easier to import it wherever we want, right? So you can imagine it like so, right? So this is where our hook is, use CashApp. And before I was setting up public key right here, right? And if I wanted to use it in the profile, I would have to pass it down as a prop, right? Instead, I can set up public key here and pass it down anywhere I want, just like so. I don't have to pass it down at all, okay? So that's why we're doing that. And when we set up the function, it's gonna make a lot more sense, make our code a lot cleaner. So we are setting up connected and public key here. Let's also set up our avatar there as well. So we can X this out. So I just cut that use effect, and let's actually put it in our CashApp hook right here. Cool. So now that that's there, we can do stuff like this. If we're connected, right, then we want to set this avatar, right? But now there's going to be an error. It's going to say something like set avatar is undefined. So let's go back here. Yep, set avatar is not defined. Do you guys know why that is? I'm going to give you 3, 2, 1. Pause the video and see if you could fix it. All right, cool. So if you want to know the answer to that, let's get back to our index. That's because our set avatar state was defined in index. So take that out of there and put it into your CashApp hook, save, and now avatar is not defined, right? And look where it's not defined in. Is it undefined in our CashApp hook, or is it undefined in index? It's undefined in index. So how can we make it defined? All right, 2 things we have to do is 1, bring avatar back out and set avatar, just in case, and go to index, and also go to line 21 and bring out avatar. All right, now it says user address is not defined, right, in CashApp, because it has no idea what the hell this is. What we could do instead is put in public key. Look at this. Let's put in public key instead, which is our wallet. Hey, that's our custom avatar based on our public key, which is AT. So there it is. Okay, but now we want to set up this guy, right? The one I was talking about earlier, these. Okay, so how do we go about that? Well, now that it's in our hook, right? Let's also set up user address, right? Because that number is coming from user address. So we can take this guy. As a matter of fact, we could take this guy, save, bring him to the CashApp hook, and put user address here, and we might as well put set user address here too. Cool. And let's go back to our index and let's get user address. So now we're going back. Okay, cool. So it still thinks our user address is 111, and that makes sense because we set it here. Let's also change the user address. So what I'm going to do is actually erase this one here because I don't think we'll need it. I don't think we'll need set avatar either. So just put avatar and user address here for now. And for the use effect here, if we're connected, set the avatar to my avatar and set the user address to my public key. And don't forget to do .toString so that we can read it. Okay, and also this one as well, .toString. This might actually change our profile picture too, by the way. Let's hit save, and bam, look at that. Awesome. So now we have a dynamic user profile component, right? What do I mean by dynamic? Well, if I disconnect this real quick and also change my wallet to wallet number 2, now you can see it's 4A something. If I were to connect my wallet now, look at that. It's a different user. So now anybody can log in and anybody can get their own user. So I'm gonna switch to wallet 1. Look at that, wallet 1 still has the same profile picture as well. There you go. And another thing that I forgot to mention, the reason why we're not getting any truncate string error, right, is because when I set my user address with the public key, right, it's only going to do that if we're connected, right? So if we're connected, public key does exist and we can truncate it. Otherwise, it's like try to truncate a public key that doesn't exist just yet, right? That's why we kept getting the error. If we do it this way, we can ensure that's only going to run when connected. And we also want to do this and add connected here so that this will only run once and if connection changes. Otherwise, it's going to keep running if we keep updating. So make sure you do that. And now let's add the next step. So if you're here, let's make it so that when we press pay, we can actually send some Solana, right? That's the main reason you're here. How do we use Solana Pay? And before we move on, I just wanted to give credit to pointer.gg. They give an amazing tutorial on how to use Solana Pay. It is in TypeScript though, so what I'm doing with this video is showing you guys how to use it in JavaScript, which is not that much different. Another difference is that we're going to be setting up the transaction on the front end instead of an API route, which is more secure. So again, when you're making this to production on the mainnet, make sure you turn this and convert it to an API route. Okay, cool. With that said, going back to the app, we want to set up Solana Pay inside of our CashApp hook. So go into your use CashApp. We imported a lot of the things we're going to be needing already, but the first thing that we have to do is import a couple things, or I mean, pull a lot of things from the hooks. So one thing that I wanted to pull is const connected. Oops. Const connection actually, and this one's going to come from use connection. All right, so that's what we imported earlier right here. Another thing that we should set up is any of our states. So there's going to be something called amount. So let's do const amount and set amount. Okay, set that equal to use state, and usually the amount we can put at 0. Okay. Coming down to line 13, we have connected, we have public key. We also want to be able to send a transaction, right? So usually when we make a transaction, Phantom will pop up here and ask us to sign and approve that transaction, okay? So we're going to send transaction like so. Cool. So let's see, is there anything else that we're going to need? Another thing that we're going to need is... I think that's it. I think what's left is we should make that function. So I'm going to make that function next. So coming down under this use effect, let's create a transaction. Right, that's what we want to do. To send to our wallet, and we can sign it from there. Okay. So first we want to create the transaction that our wallet sends us. And to create it, we need to make a function. So we can make this asynchronous and say async make transaction, async, well actually we can do it like this. Const make transaction equals async, right? Function. And it's going to take in a couple different things. Okay, it's going to take in a few parameters. It's going to be from wallet to wallet, the amount, and something that we'll call the reference. Okay, so it's going to take in those things. And we need to establish the network that we're using. So we can say const network is equal to the wallet adapter network, and then you can say .devnet. Okay, cool. So we're taking this wallet adapter network, we're saying we're using the devnet, right? And then we can say const endpoint. Here you can use your own RPC endpoint, whether that is Alchemy, QuickNode, Infura. But again, we're using the cluster API URL, which is the devnet, right? The default endpoint that they provide us. And we can also set up a connection. We can say const connection is equal to new connection, and this is capital connection coming from here, and set this equal to that endpoint. So we're setting up our connection, plugging in our endpoint, which we're saying that we're using the devnet. Okay, so this goes into this, which goes into this. Okay, next we want to, let's make a note. We can say this is get a recent block hash to include in the transaction. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we can say const block hash is equal to await connection dot get latest block hash and put finalized. All right, so it's gonna get the last block hash that's in the transaction, and it's gonna look for anything that says it's done or finalized. Okay. Next, let's set up our actual transaction object that we want to send. So we say const transaction is equal to, how do we make the object? New transaction, right? Where is this transaction coming from? It's coming from Solana Web 3, as you can see right here. And inside of that, we want to put an object here and basically pass in any properties of this transaction that we want. Deprecated, that's fine. We can say recent block hash is the block hash, right? The previous one that we got. And we can say the fee payer, right? Why do we care about the fee payer? Every time you make a transaction, there is a small fee that you're gonna pay. You can think of it like taxes. And the one who should pay is the person who, the buyer, or the one sending money, right? Or signing. So you can say from wallet. Okay, so the buyer pays the transaction fee. Okay, cool. So that's our transaction object. And then from here, now we can create the instruction, right? The actual sending Solana part of this. Okay, so to create the instruction or the actual payment of Solana transfer, we can say const transfer instruction is equal to system program dot transfer. Okay, so this is going to handle the transfer of funds. So make it sure you put transfer here, parentheses, curly brackets, and then say from pub key, right? And you're going to figure out where are you sending Solana from, and that's going to be this parameter right here, from wallet, right? So the Solana is going to be coming from me, right? And the idea is that we send it to whatever user that we put in. So another thing here we got to put in is LAN ports. If you don't know what LAN ports are, so there is Solana, which is Sol, and you can break it down into smaller units called LAN ports, right? The best way to think of it is think of dollars, and then you can break dollars down to cents, right? So LAN ports is your cents, right? So you gotta set up this LAN ports key here and say the amount, right? The amount that we pass in. So this could be 1 Solana or 2 Solana, or you want to take that amount and you want to convert it to Sol, right? So you can do that by saying multiplied by, by parentheses, LAN ports per Sol, right? That's that import from here. And what you want to do with it is dot to number, right? So to format it like so, dot to number, and then from there we can say to pub key, like who you're sending it to, put to wallet there. Okay, cool. All right, so to pub keys to wallet, right? So remember the type of this should be a public key, a PK, and this should also be a public key. All right, So that's the transfer instruction. We can make a little comment there so we remember. We can say create the instruction to send SOL from buyer to person, from owner to recipient. Okay, cool. And now we want to set up the transfer instruction, right? Dot keys dot push. This is for the reference. This is basically so that when we query for the reference, the transaction is returned. Okay, so what we want to do here to set that up is pub key is the reference, which is also expecting a type of public key, is the signer false, and is writable should be false as well. Okay, cool. And now for the final step, transaction dot add, and then we put the instruction there. Okay, so go here. I'm going to add the instruction to the transaction, and then we just return the transaction. Okay, there is another step to this. This is just creating or making the transaction. We also have to just, run the transaction or do the payment. Okay, this is actually the function, create the function to run the transaction. This will be added to the button. Right, so this is the actual function that when you click new and then click pay, this function is going to run when we write here, and it's going to call it's going to make a transaction and then process it. Okay, so what we want to do here is similar thing. We say const do transaction, we call it that, is equal to async function. And then inside here, we want to pass in this object here and say the amount, the receiver, and the transaction purpose. Right? Like this is the description. Like, why did you send this transaction? It's basically like the payment for CashApp project, or what you put it as the reason you're paying this person. Okay, and you can even, doesn't even have to be a CashApp. I want you guys to play with this functionality and make your own store. Right, that's what the pointer.gg is setting up. A cookie shop. Maybe you can play with that. Set up your own store, and let's say you have your own, I don't know, your own shop, your own e-shop. You can accept Solana payments using Solana Pay. All right, so set it up to fit your needs. Right, so we're doing do transaction. You can say const from wallet is equal to public key. Right, so from wallet is equal to public key. Why is it equal to public key? Because that's my address. Who's ever logged in is the from wallet. Right, next I want to say const to wallet. Right, so notice how we're setting up the parameters for make transaction. Like we're defining these things. Right, to wallet is equal to new public key receiver. Right, because when I pass in, like if I visualize this, right, if I go new and I put in a public key here, it's not going to be in the PK format. It's going to be in a string. So you want to turn that string into a public key. So to do that, take that string and pass it in new public key, like so. You with me? Okay, good. I'm glad you answered. So then you can say const bn amount, right? Because this amount right here is just a number, which is like 1, 5, 2. It's not a big number, right? But when you go to the make transaction, that amount has to be a bn because it's going to be multiplied like so. Otherwise, it's going to say you can't multiply by it. All right, so turn that into a bn by saying new big number is amount, right? And the reason why we didn't do it beforehand is because we're going to use this amount for the transaction details. Okay, so coming down below here, let's set up the reference is equal to key pair dot generate, and our this will generate a random public key for our reference, and then we can say const transaction is equal to await make transaction. So notice how we're calling that function here. So we can say, oops. So we can say make transaction. And now we can pass in all these variables. We can say from wallet, we can say to wallet, and we can say BN amount, right, as the amount, and reference is reference. Okay, so make sure you take all of these and pass it here, and then I'll handle all of that when it creates it. Cool. Now let's set up the transaction hash. This is optional, but I like to make sure that it's confirmed, so we can send transaction, right? Transaction and connection, right? And then we can console log it to get the transaction hash. And then you can even look at Sol Scan or Sol Explorer to see it. From here, we need to create, actually, do we need to do this? Oh, we'll save this stuff for later, but we do need to create the transaction history object, right? But I'll save that for later. Next thing we have to do is pass it along. So let's just test our code right now. So we're gonna do the do transaction. Okay, cool. So we have do transaction, which calls make transaction, so we don't have to pass down both. We can just put do transaction here and go to where we need it. So where did I say we need that do transaction? We need it in the transaction component. So let's go to transaction, go to transaction list, new transaction. So go to new transaction modal, and if you look, there's a button here that says pay, and on click it's gonna run pay. But we can do here is get our CashApp hook. So we say import use CashApp, and we need to destructure it and get the do transaction equals use CashApp, and in here pass in do transaction. And since we're here, we need to make an object and then pass in all of these states here, the amount, the receiver, the transaction purpose, right? So we can do, we should also import these states in the use CashApp actually. So what I'm gonna do is actually take these out. So go ahead and line 6 through 8, cut them, go to your use CashApp, and let's bring them down here, right? So we already have set amount right there. So bring amount in there, bring receiver, bring transaction purpose, right? And let's make sure you take them here. So amount, set amount, we have receiver, set receiver, we have transaction purpose, set transaction purpose, and save. We're gonna get that error, but we'll fix it if we bring it out here. So we can do amount, set amount, we can do receiver, set receiver, you can do set receiver exists, you can do transaction purpose, set transaction purpose. There we go. So now if it's save, we're back together. All right, so that said, now you can pass all those values in, amount, receiver, and transaction purpose, right? So now all we did was just move the states to the use CashApp. We are then taking the change states and running do transaction, and let's do it in a wait, because I want to make sure that this happens first, and then we can clear the states. So let's see if this works. So the way we can test this is first log into Phantom and take note of how much Solana we have. So we only have 2 Solana in this wallet. If I go to wallet number 2, he has 4 Solana. So I'm going to give 1 Solana to wallet number 2. So this should end up with 5. This should end up with just 1. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and click new, change this to 1. And who are we sending this to? We're sending it to wallet number 2. So hit copy right here after you make a new wallet. I'm gonna hit copy. And what's the reason for this? Well, I'm going to say 4 cookies. Okay, I'm thinking about cookies right now. Let's do cookie. Boom. All right, let's see if this works. Let's pay. And yes, okay, so usually if you see this, this is our transaction that we created, right? And it says -1 sol, right? If it says it can't calculate the price, usually there's going to be something wrong. So make sure it gives you the right amount, 1 sol. Hit approve. It clears it, and it should close this, so we need to fix that. But let's see if it confirmed. Let me inspect element. Cool, so we got the transaction hash right here. Let's see how much Solana we have. We have 1 sol. Okay, what wallet number 2? 5 sol. So it worked. Let's freaking go. So we did notice a couple of things there when we did that. One, the modal didn't close, right? So that means we need to set modal open. Does this exist? Yeah, so set modal open to false. Okay, so let's set that to false, and let me just make sure set modal open is this. Okay, cool. All right, so now when we run it, it should close, but next thing we need to do is it's not saved in our history. This is still static transactions. How can we make it dynamic? Well, I'll tell you the answer. All right, so how do we want to store transactions? Well, we're going to be using something called local storage, right? We're not using a database. We're using our in-browser's storage and storing each transaction object in an array of all of that and then pulling them. All right, so let's figure out how to set that up. The first thing I'm probably going to do is head over to your CashApp hook and go ahead and set up a local storage hook that we can use. So I'm going to go in between our use effect and our use connection, and we can say const use local storage, and this is going to take in the storage key that we're going to need and the fallback state, right? And you can set that equal to something like this. Okay, so again, this is our custom use local storage hook, and what we could do is say const value and set value is equal to use state. Okay, and if you do json.parse, right, we want to turn this local storage item to a JSON. So we can do that by saying local storage dot get item, right? So we can get an item from our local storage. We want to get an item based on the storage key. Okay, cool. So we're getting an item based on the storage key. Then we're going to parse that into a value. Let's see. It's fine. And we can do a question mark fallback state, right? So if there isn't anything there, we can set it back to a fallback state. And we're getting error because this needs to be an equal sign right here. And then in that same function, we can do a use effect actually. And in that use effect, we can actually set the item here. So we can do something like this and say local storage that set item based on the storage key, json.stringify, and place in the value, and semicolon here, and then we can put the value and storage key like so. So put the dependency module, put value, and set value. Okay, cool. We're not done yet because we need to use local storage. So we can do that by setting up down here. Actually, no, I could do it right under here. We can say const array for transactions, right? This is gonna be our new transactions, and set transactions is equal to the use local storage, right? And then for here, you can put the key is transactions, and the fallback state will be an empty array. Now the key for this, guys, is to make sure you're passing down transactions here. Right? There's already a lot of things that we're passing down. If you want to format it, you can even format it like so. So doop, do. It'll be faster actually if I do it this way. Set amount, receiver, set receiver, transaction purpose. Boom. Okay, and then you can add transactions and set transactions. Cool. So save that, and when you go to your index, let's get those transactions as well. So transactions and set transactions. I don't think we'll need set transactions here though, but let's actually just erase that. We're gonna see an error because there's 2 transactions, right? And we want to comment this one out. And undefined is uniterable. Okay, that's fine. Let's see. So the error must be in CashApp. Looking in here, const value, JSON parse, that's fine. It should be iterable if we return it. So let's make sure we return that array with value and set value, save. Hey, there we go. So we see no transactions because there is none, right? How can I prove it to you? Well, if you go to your index, let's actually console log transactions here. No, we should probably say here it is. Save. Save. Yep, array 0, right? If you're getting an error at this point, you can just say something like local storage dot clear parentheses and hit enter. And make sure you do that, because if you're getting any errors, it's because it's trying to read something in local storage that doesn't fit the format. So I had that error before, so make sure you clear it. So you should see nothing here. Okay, and again, if you're getting an error for the word transactions, make sure you comment this one out because this is static. Cool. So we got that there. It's already being passed in line 37 for me. So that's why it'll automatically render it if there is something there. What we need to do next is in our CashApp, go back to that function, do transaction, and let's create the transaction history object. All right, this is actually pretty easy. We just have to make an object essentially. All you have to do is just write const new ID, right? Because every transaction is going to be a new ID, and the new ID will be based on the length of transactions. So transactions.length, right, plus 1.toString. So it's going to be length of 0 at the beginning plus 1. The ID is going to be 1. Next time we do this, ID is 1 plus 1, it's going to be 2, right? So from here we can say const new. All right, so I was saying const new ID is going to be the transactions.length plus 1.toString, and now we can create the transaction object. So we can do that by saying const new transaction and set that equal to the object. So the idea is we create this new object, and once we fill in all the parameters or keys for that object, add it to that local storage array that we set up. So what we need to do is set the key, which is ID, is going to be new ID. All right, we set that up earlier. Then we can do from, and that just says like who is this transaction from, and to store the information we need the name, which will be public key, right? Because remember, public key is whoever is logged in, so that's me or you, right? Next is the handle, right? Which is usually the $ plus the username, but we could just put that as public key. Now for the avatar, we should have the access to the avatar because we put it up here, right? So it does know what avatar is, so we can just say avatar. And after you add the avatar, there's just this fun verified attribute you could say is true. Are you verified by CashApp? You could add this, it's optional, right? But I'm just gonna put that there since I set it up. And then we can say to, right? Which is also gonna equate to an object, and this is for the receiver, right? So do we have access to receiver? We do, right? Because remember when you make the transaction, you're putting the receiver, and we could pass that along here. And for the handle, right, I like to put this as blank because again, it's the $ plus the receiver. You can just set it as that. For the avatar, so by default, it's not going to know what the avatar is, But if we call the getAvatar function here, we can just give it an avatar. All right, so if we go back to the app, well, actually you can't see because there's no transactions. But if you remember back here, there was like a profile picture. We're gonna be able to set that through what we're doing now. Okay, so that said, go back to the app and we can put the receiver. And let me ask you guys this question. What type is this receiver? Like by type, I mean, is it a number? Is it a string? Right? Is it a Boolean? Right? I'm gonna give you guys 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. If you said public key, you'd be correct. Right? And the code can't really read, like this can get an avatar, but it would be better if you turn that to a string first. Right, so it's an order of operations here. So this will happen first, turn this into a string, and then get the avatar based on the string that this returns. Does that make sense? Cool. So after that, we can do verified, and just for fun, we'll just make this false. So we got the to, the from, some other metadata that we need is going to be description. All right, so description is going to be description. Did I spell that right? Cool. Description, put a comma here. There we go. Description is going to be the transaction purpose, right? When you click on the transaction itself, you're going to see this details page that I showed in the demo. All right, so to get the right format for it, we have to set up this object. So description is transaction purposes. Transaction date is new date, which is going to be the date, today's date. And status, of course, it has to say completed. The amount can be the amount, right? And make sure it's not BN amount, because that's going to be a number that it's not going to like. Source is going to be this. And for identifier, that can also be blank. Cool. Again, these are like optional properties that if you want to see these details, you can add them. I'm just going to make it a dash for now. Cool, so we made the object, but are we done, guys? No. As you can see, this is grayed out, which means it's not being used. So how the hell are we going to use this? Well, we can do that by set new transactions, right? So we need to set up that state here. But do we have that state actually? So we do not have that state, so let's set that up. So you want to get that modal open state. So if we go to index, I believe, let's go to index. Yes, the new transaction modal is what I think we need. Yep, this one's set to false. We can actually take this out, save, and bring this to the CashApp. The reason why I'm bringing it here is because after we make the object, we should close it. So to close it, we just have to say set new transaction modal open to false. All right, so it'll close the modal. And the most important part that we're actually here for is the set transactions, right? This is the coming from the use local storage hook. So you do that, and it's gonna be an array and the new transaction. All right, so this is the object we just created up here. But what you wanna do, right, this is the key thing here, is press comma, comma, dot, transactions, right? This is a neat way using the spread operator to get all the array items in transactions, and it's gonna add this new one right here, right? So it's quite a clever way using the spread operator. Awesome, so save that there. And oh yeah, we already passed down our do transactions in this return, and now it should run. So let's test it out. I'm gonna go back to our app. Yes, so this is gonna be undefined because we moved it. So let's go here and let's bring it back up. Set new transaction model open. Okay. Oh yeah, we need the state itself, so that's new transaction model open. Save. And are we bringing it out? Yep, we gotta do that here. Set new transaction model open and new right here. All right, now we should be good to go. Transition is used, but it's missing a true or false prop. Okay. That means it's not reading the state of true or false, which means, oh, I think I see what I did wrong, guys. Yeah, so I added stuff to this use state that shouldn't be there. Let's take this out. Oops, not the whole thing. Set these two and paste that in here, because these should come from use CashApp, as you can see. So it said save, and now, all right, are we good? All right. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Oh yeah, we should connect our wallet. That's the issue here. All right, cool. So no errors. All right, everything's all and nice and dandy. Just checking. Okay, cool. All right, so now let's see if it works. I'm gonna do new, and let's take a phantom wallet check. All right, we are down to how many Solana? We are down to our last Solana. All right, so let's go ahead and pick new. We're gonna donate 1 Sol. We are going to send this to wallet number 2. I'm gonna pay him off, copy, and we're gonna say for cookies. All right, I think that's what we did last time. And let's do that. And so now this should save in our transactions component right here, because we're saving to local storage. Let's hit pay. Yes, okay, remember what I said? This is a good sign if you actually can sign it. Hit approve. Oh. Uncaught in promise. Oh, there it is. Okay, just have to do a quick refresh. It saved it to local storage. Amazing. Look at that. So it's pretty much done. There is a bonus feature. If you look at the pointer.gg, or if you just think about CashApp in general, when you click on your profile picture, you get this nice QR code where you can use your phone to send money, right? You can do that with CashApp if you just scan the QR code, right? And there's this functionality here that says load QR code, but it doesn't do anything. So let me show you guys how to set up your very own QR code. It's pretty simple. All right, so you want to add a QR code to your app, right? And the QR code, it should be dynamic. And what I mean by dynamic is based on your public key, it should make a QR code that automatically goes to this specific address, right? So let's think about how this works. If I click my profile picture right here, right, just to illustrate here, it should load up this modal, right? So how the hell do we find that, right? So, oops, I'm still in my draw tool. So how can we go about finding this? Well, if I go to my VS Code, that's probably going to be in my profile, right? So notice how it says set modal open, set transaction QR model, right? That's where we need to go. So you want to press Control or Command and then click profile, and it should take you to that component. Quick little hack. Now, once you're here, let's take a look. We're in profile, and in on profile open, it's gonna set the modal open to true, right? Which means if you go to your components, go to your transaction folder here and click on transaction QR modal. So this is where we want to be loading everything. The first thing that I'm thinking about is that we should create a state that says if the QR code is there or not, right? So basically a flag. So what I'm thinking is go back to your index, and you could put this in your CashApp hook, but for simplicity's sake, let's put it in our index. And all you have to do is write const, make the state const QR code, and put set QR code, right? And it's kind of misleading, but the name basically is going to be either true or false, right? And the key is when you pass it along to the transaction QR modal. Okay. So when I go over here, you can say QR code is equal to, or rather set QR code. So let me fix that. Set QR code is equal to set QR code. And these don't have to be the same name, but I'm gonna make it the same name so it's not confusing. So this prop's name is taking this function. Okay, so then we can go back here. We can import said set QR code. Okay, oh, not this one. We don't want that. We actually want this one, transaction QR modal. Then we pass that in there. All right, and we want to set the state to true to re-render the component with the generated QR code. So what's the process? We need to generate the QR code based on public key, right? Remember, public key in this sense is our key, the user that's logged in. Then, right, set the state to true to re-render component with the generated QR code, right? Because this isn't gonna update automatically. That's why I have a button that's gonna re-render it. Right, that's the idea here. Okay, so all we have to do for this is pretty much just say set QR code to true. And once you've done that, the question is now, how the hell do we generate a QR code? If you get lost at any point, there is documentation on this done by pointer.gg, so shout outs to them. If you go to, I believe, SolanaPay, point of sale page, scroll down to about here. We want to generate this kind of QR code that we can use our phone to scan and then send money directly, right? So the code is similar to this, but remember this is in TypeScript. I'm going to be doing this modified version in JavaScript. Yeah, so again, quick reminder, this is done through the front end. You can generate transactions through an API route that's way more secure because remember, the client can modify data and you don't want that when you're dealing with your real money. So that's my little disclaimer, but back to the video. Let's start doing this. So the thing I want to do first is let's set up a use effect, right? Because we want something to run at a certain time. Okay, that's kind of how I think about use effect. This is going to do something, do something when the component first loads, when it renders, or when it gets removed, right? You can control this with use effect, right? So what do we want to do in this use effect? Well, the idea is to generate a QR code. Okay, so let's generate a QR code. We're gonna need a couple variables. First is const recipient is equal to blank, right? So who is receiving this amount, right? So let's think about this. If I go back to my app, this QR code, who does it belong to? Who's gonna receive money from me scanning this? It should be this user who's logged in, right? So if that's the case, then the new public key, right? Where am I getting this? It's from this. The new public key from user address, right? So user address is my public key as a string, but now we're turning it back into a public key here, right? So next is the amount, right? Okay, so one thing about the amount, sorry about that. One thing about the amount. So the amount has to be a big number, right? So you can make it dynamic by maybe going back to here and setting up like how much do you want to pay, kind of like how this is. So you can copy this functionality and apply it here. I'll show you guys how to do a static version. Right, every time you scan this QR code, you're gonna send them 1 sol. Right, and it'll tell you that. It's not gonna surprise you. But the const amount is gonna be a static amount for now, and it's gonna be 1 sol every time I send money. Right. So to do that, we need to make it a big number. So you can say new big number, and you should have big number imported already. Big number is string 1. All right. So if you ever want to change this, you want to make the default 5, right? You want to get rich, say 10, all right, or make it dynamic later on. Go ahead and do that. Next is the reference. So we're going to set the reference equal to key pair dot generate dot public key, right? So generate a random key pair as a public key to label as reference. Then it's the label, right? So when you run this transaction, you'll see a little like notification that says why you're sending money, right? So you can say this is to Evil Cookies Incorporated. That's the example they used, right? So let's just do that. We'll say Evil Cookies Incorporated. And for the message, right, you can send who's ever clicking on the QR code a nice message, right? So we can say thanks for your soul. Let's put cookies because that's been on my mind. Boom. So these are the variables that we're going to pass in to generate that QR code. All right. So one of the first things we need to do is say const URL params is equal to recipient amount reference label message. Okay. Cool. So that's the URL params that we need to generate the QR code. There's a way to make it so that it doesn't even have to be SOL. You can even use USDC. So the guide on pointer.gg also tells you how you can use USDC. It's probably going to be USDC address right here. So pass that in somewhere here. But again, we're just using SOL for this build. So that's the URL params. And then from there, we're going to say const URL is equal to encode URL parentheses URL params. Okay. And encode URL is coming from SolanaPay. Right. So this is the module that's going to help us generate the QR code, so we don't have to do everything from scratch or yourself. Right. We're going to utilize all of these functions here. Okay. So we're going to code our URL params, and from here we're going to say const QR is equal to create QR. Right. So we're using that create QR function. We're going to pass in the URL, which we just made. We're going to pass in 488, comma, transparent, right? So this is kind of like, how do you want the QR to look, right? So you can change this for the size, and we're going to make it transparent. Okay. Now, the next part is setting up the ref. One thing I'm realizing, we're going to need to set up our use ref hook for this. All right, so if you don't know what use ref hook is, you can think of it like a special function that helps us remember things, right? Let's say we have a box, for example, and I wanted to remember what I put in this box, right? Use ref hook lets us look into that box so and store things in it, and lets us pull things out for it later. Right, so if that makes sense to you, what we're gonna do next is set up that hook. So it should be already imported right here. And to use it, all we have to do is come up to the top here and say const QR ref is equal to use ref. All right. At this moment, we're not technically doing anything yet. Use ref is going to give us back an object, right? We need to reference something now. So what are we referencing? If you look at this div over here, every HTML element has a built-in property called ref. So like every element has a class name that you could utilize, right? Some have an on click that you could utilize, right? We can use a ref here and say equal to QR ref, right? So this div, specific div that's inside the modal, is going to host the QR code essentially. All right, think of it like that. So this is our box, and we're gonna store our QR code reference in here. Does that make sense? Cool. So let's see, const QR ref is equal to use ref. Okay, and the next thing we should probably do is import use connection. I think I'm using it right here. And you can say const destructure connection equals use connection. Oops, like so. Okay, it's gonna come into play later. What do we want to do next? Okay, cool. So let's come back to our function right here, line 39 for me. And what we want to do is if, right, we're gonna check our box now, qrref.current, right? If there's something in here, right, then qrref.current.html, right? We're directly targeting the HTML of our reference, right? And it should be inner HTML actually. Inner HTML, that makes more sense. It's equal to quotes, right? And we can append something to that QR. So QR dot append the QR ref dot current. So essentially appending the QR code to our box so that it's gonna live in here. That's the idea. Okay. Could not find create QR. Oh, capital R. Boom. So now it exists. So let's hit save. Any errors on this guy? Nope. Still good. What happens if I click this? Black screen. Okay, so we're closer, right? It shouldn't be, it shouldn't look like that. Just want to check something. Yeah, it shouldn't be a black screen, which means our parameters might be a little off, but this is a good step. Okay. Okay, just doing some troubleshooting. It shouldn't be a black screen. You saw that? Let's look at how it's generating. Create QR, URL, size, transparent. Trap said transparent, guys. So if we do transparent, so load. Oh, I saw it. Perfect. Okay, cool. So I saw it. It worked. That's why spelling matters in your app. So just try that one more time for safety. Ah, there we go. We should see an actual QR code, so we're good to go. So make sure you spell transparent correctly. And now we need to wait for the transaction, right? Wait for the user to send the transaction, right? So this part isn't gonna be done on the app itself. This is gonna be done on your phone or the mobile app that scanned the QR code. So we need to be listening for that. So constantly making an interval that listens for the user, right? Again, not the most ideal way, but here's a hack. We could do const interval is equal to set interval async, and inside this async we can console log, and this is optional just to show you, waiting for transaction confirmation. It's going to appear a couple times, right? But what we want to wait for and constantly try is seeing if there is a transaction. So let's set up a try catch here. And if you don't know, catch is going to have E, and you can have like console.log error. Okay. And we can have more detailed catches, and I'll show you guys how to do that in just a second. And the first thing you want to do is check if there's any transactions for the reference, right? So to do that, we can say try const signature info is equal to await find reference, right? Connection, right? So we're passing in the use connection here, and we're also using the find reference function, right? And it's going to take the reference itself. It's going to see if there's anything with that reference, and put an object here and put finality confirmed, and that should be a string. Finality confirmed, and I think I spelled that right. Cool. After that, this is the part where it's validating. So you can even put a console log validating, right? Again, optional. So to validate the transfer, you have to say await validate transfer, right? That was kind of obvious. Where am I getting this from? It's this function right here. Okay, validate transfer. And we can pass in everything we passed in before, which is the connection that we're using, the signature info.signature, right? So this is the actual us saying, yeah, I confirmed the transaction, but not on the front end app, on mobile. Okay, and it's gonna take in an object as well, so make sure you put a comma here, put an object out, and say the recipient, right, the amount, and the reference. I pass in these two things, and they all should exist at the top here in our URL params, right? I'm actually not in our URL params, in the variable that we made up here. So the recipient, the amount, and the reference. Like, who is it going to, what's the amount, and what's the reference? Okay, and from here, another comma, object, commitment, confirmed, right? So this is more validation, and parentheses, and yeah, cool. At this point, right, at this point, the transaction is confirmed. Let's add the transaction to our local storage, right? Because I want to see this local storage item inside our list of transactions, right? Otherwise, we can't really tell unless we're in mobile. So to do that, and again, if you're curious, like how can I make this a live app that's not local storage, you would replace the local storage code with writing to a database. You can use Sanity, you can use Firebase, right? That can store your transactions for you and then pull it. Okay, so feel free to replace that, or leave a comment down below if you want to see a full-scale like shop using SolanaPay. So let me know if you're interested in that, and I can go for a more in-depth tutorial. Cool. Anyways, let's set that up. So the cool part about storing this into local storage is it's exactly the same as this, right? So if we scroll all the way here, this is the exact same. So let's copy that. Let's bring that to transaction QR model and paste it. All right, so what's the difference here? It doesn't know what transactions is, so we have to bring that into our app. So how do we make it understand what transactions is? Well, luckily, we can use CashApp. Right, so we can say import use CashApp like so, like this, and then just bring it in here. So we can say const transactions set transactions is equal to use CashApp. Bam! So now it should know what it is. Let's scroll down and modify the code some more. All right, so it knows what transaction is. It doesn't know what public key is, right? So how can we fix that? So one option is to, get public key from use CashApp, but there is something we could use, right? We can use recipient, right? Recipient is already what we need. It's already the public key, right? So it's us. Recipient is another way of saying user address. Okay, cool. But now the avatar, it doesn't know what avatar is. And again, solution, bring it from use CashApp, or right, we can use the get avatar URL, which is not yet here. So we can say import get avatar URL, right? And we're gonna call that function right here. Get avatar URL and pass in recipient.toString. All right. Okay, cool. And now, what about to, right? This is kind of confusing. This is who we're sending money to, but when you're reading the transactions, you're gonna see money going to yourself. It might be confusing. So feel free to switch the recipient with the receiver if it makes more sense to you. But what I like to do is I'll make this the reference, right, which is also public key. So it's gonna show a different person, right? Because the reference is referencing the transaction. It makes sense. So from here, we can say the reference to string, and that's the avatar it generates, right? Completely unique one and not verified. Cool. Now the transaction purpose, right? This one can be fully customizable, but for me to understand how it works, I'll say, user sent you Sol through Phantom app. Okay. Cool. And now, status completed, new date, source identifier. Awesome. What else? This new set new transaction model open, that doesn't exist here either. So what we're gonna need to use is modal open and set modal open instead. All right. So what we could do is change this, set modal open, hit save, and guess what? That should be it. All right, so as I was saying, we want to set modal open instead of the set transaction, set new transaction to false, right? Because this is coming from the parent right here. This is the actual QR modal, right? So on second thought, maybe you want to close this after we make sure that the transaction goes through. And before you hit save, like I just did, you want to make sure that you clear the interval as well. So let's clear the interval and pass in the interval. And then you're going to say 500 here. And don't forget to return the clear interval. Otherwise, you're going to get a post error that I might get in just a second. And the next thing you want to do is let's set up the catch, right? So I'm just gonna temporarily stop my server because I don't want the interval to run over and over again in case you guys saved. So stop the server, let's set up a bunch of the catches, right? So there's a couple different errors that SolanaPay can find for you. It's the find reference error and the validate transfer error. So it's gonna help us identify what went wrong. So if you just say if e instance of find reference error, then we know that there's no transaction found. So we can say no transaction found yet. Ignore this. You can ignore this basically. The next instance that can happen is if e instance of validate transfer error, you can say the transaction is basically just invalid. Transaction is invalid. So console.error, for whatever reason, the transaction is invalid. Okay. And you can also return after that as well. The next thing we can do is just console.error, unknown error. So this is really bad if you see unknown error. Okay, so this is gonna help us debug in case anything goes wrong. So I'm gonna yarn dev again, and we might have some errors on here. So let's just refresh this, give it a minute to fix itself. Okay, and while we do that, let's go check on our Solana. Okay, so click on Phantom. We are working with 0 Solana. We're basically broke. We have 0.1. What we want to do is take it from our mobile app, which should have some Sol already, and let's check our console to see if it's spamming ourselves. Nope. All right, this is normal. We should see this. It stops and then it starts listening, waiting for the transaction again. Okay, so let's go ahead, open our QR code. Cool. And I'm going to start recording on my phone. So make sure you download the Phantom Wallet app on your app store and give yourself some test Solana. And you can see from my screen here, I have exactly 1.9991 Sol, right? So we want to send that to this wallet. So we can go ahead and click on the top right. So what we're going to do is open up Phantom and check how much Solana we have. We are broke. We have 0 Solana left. What we want to do is open up your phone, download the Phantom Wallet app from your app store, get yourself some Solana, and I'm going to start recording on my phone as well. Cool. So once you're on your phone, what you could do is click on your profile picture, load QR code. Oops, sorry, let me refresh this real quick. Load QR code, and then on the top right on your phone, it's going to open up your camera and scan it. So you can see our label is there. Thanks for your Sol. The message, which is customizable. Go ahead and hit send and make sure it says 1 Sol. So send. You can inspect elements while we do that. And we got some unknown error. Oh boy. Set transactions is not a function. Okay. So it looks like it went through, but the set transactions is not a function. And I think I know why. So this is why we test things. So I'm going to stop that. I'm recording on my phone. Let's go to our CashApp hook. And yes, that's why. Set transactions should be here. And if we go up here, it should be set transactions. Set. Wow, I believe I spelled it wrong all this time. So set transactions. And I think in our QR, yeah, every single time I wrote transaction, it was without the N. So that's going to be a problem. So we should probably go back to the on pay. Oh, they use CashApp. And go back to here and add that N in there. Awesome. Okay. So now we can try this again. I might need to refund myself because now I have no money in my Solana. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I successfully refunded my Solana. I went back in the code. I fixed the set transactions. It should exist now. So let's give it a nice refresh. Let's try that again. So looking at my Phantom extension, how many Solana do I have? I should have 0. Like I said, we're broke. All right, so what we want to do next, go on your phone, let me start recording on this. Okay, and again, you should have the Phantom app installed from the App Store. I have exactly 1.9 Sol that I could send myself. So let's go ahead and open this guy up, load the QR code for ourselves, hit console, and you can see that's waiting for transactions. All right, 6, 7, 8, cool. Now, on the top right of your phone, click on that square, scan the QR code, and bam, you should see a summary of everything we wrote. Thanks for your soul, cookie emoji, and hit send. And cross our fingers. Look at that. It said sent and my Frontend app updated, confirmed, proceed with evil deeds. And now, that's it. We did it. We sent our Cash App from our phone to our wallet. All right, so now if I look at Phantom, we should see 1 Sol here. Hey, we're not bankrupt anymore. We have 1 Sol. And after a while, you can see in our local storage, it updated. User sent you Sol through Phantom app. There we go. So we successfully did something through mobile with our front app, which is super cool. So again, drop a like if you liked the video. If you want to see more, comment down below. This is the Cash App build. Peace.